I always thought losing Ethan was the worst thing that would ever happen to me. I was wrong. The worst part came 5 years later, on a rainy Saturday afternoon, when I opened a notebook he'd hidden from me for our entire marriage and realized the husband I buried still had one more secret left to give me. Hi, I'm Mia. And what I'm about to tell you isn't something I read somewhere or heard from a friend of a friend. It happened in my own attic, in my own house, 5 years after I thought I'd already cried every tear I had left for this man. Stay with me till the very end, because the last page of that notebook changed the way I understand my entire marriage. 5 years. That's how long Ethan's been gone. People keep telling me time heals everything, and I guess, in pieces, it does. I don't cry every single day anymore. Mornings don't always start with that gut punch feeling like they used to. But here's what nobody tells you about grief. It doesn't actually leave. It just learns to sit quietly in the corner of your life, waiting for you to notice it again. I still sleep on my side of the bed. His side stays made, blanket folded exactly the way he used to leave it. I kept his old coffee mug, the chipped blue one, even though I've never once been a coffee drinker in my life. Small things like that just stay. His half of the closet is still full, too. I keep telling myself I'll donate it. I never do. My best friend Noor calls me every Sunday, and almost every Sunday she says some version of the same thing. Mia, it's been 5 years. You're allowed to live again, you know? And I always say the same thing back. I am living, Noor. Maybe she's right, though. She just sighs and lets it go, because she knows there's no version of that conversation where I actually agree to delete his number from my phone. The photos are still hanging exactly where he put them, not because I'm stuck, because this house still feels like home, and he's part of that home, whether he's standing in it or not. I thought I had grief completely figured out by then. I had no idea how wrong I was about to be. It happened on a Saturday, rain tapping against the windows, the kind of rain that makes you want to finally clean out the closets you've been avoiding for years. So I climbed up into the attic with a trash bag and way too much coffee in my system, ready to sort through what was left. Boxes everywhere, wedding cards, old concert tickets, half faded, photographs curling soft at the edges. I'd gone through these boxes a dozen times since he died. I genuinely thought I knew every single thing inside them. Then my hand caught on something hard, hidden underneath a loose piece of cardboard at the very bottom of one box. A notebook. Black leather, worn soft at the corners, like it had been opened and closed 1,000 times. My stomach dropped before my brain even caught up with what I was looking at. I knew that handwriting. I'd know it anywhere, in any lighting, on any piece of paper. It was Ethan's. I sat right there on the dusty attic floor and opened the very first page. My hands were already shaking before I'd read a single word. The first entries weren't dramatic at all. They were just Ethan, his worry about being a good husband, a memory from when he was 8 years old, the birthday his dad forgot completely. His fear that he wasn't smart enough, or kind enough, or simply enough, period, for someone like me. One line made me laugh out loud alone in an empty attic. He'd written, "Mia laughed at my joke tonight. The real laugh, not the polite one. I think I might actually marry this woman." I remember that joke. I remember that night. I had no idea he went home afterward and wrote it down. Reading those pages felt like hearing his voice again after 5 years of silence. I laughed once. I cried twice. I thought I knew this man better than I knew myself. Turns out, there was a whole world living quietly inside him that I never once got to see. Then I turned a page, and everything in me went still. One single line, sitting alone in the middle of an otherwise ordinary entry. He'd written, "There are things Mia can never know." I read it again and again. What things? Why can I never know? My chest went tight. I told myself it was nothing. Old fears, maybe, left over from before we even got married. But something about the way he'd written it pressed hard into the paper, like his hand was shaking too. It didn't feel like nothing at all. Wait, what was he hiding from me? All those years we were lying in the same bed. I sat there for a long moment, the notebook heavy in my lap, the rain still tapping against the attic window, like it was waiting for me to figure it out too. After that, I couldn't put the diary down. I read for hours, then days. I barely slept, barely ate, barely answered Norse texts. Every memory from our marriage started replaying in my head, except now I was watching all of it through different eyes. I started remembering moments I'd buried without realizing it. Our 5th anniversary, the year before he died, he canceled our dinner reservation last minute, said work had blown up and came home 3 hours late smelling like a coffee shop instead of an office. I didn't think twice about it back then. Why would I have? Now I sat there lining up the dates in the diary against memories I thought I understood completely and watching them rearrange into something I didn't recognize at all. I called Noor, finally, at almost midnight. "I think Ethan was hiding something from me," I told her, my voice cracking. "A whole part of his life I never knew about." She went quiet for a second, then said, "Mia, maybe some things are better left in that notebook." But I couldn't leave it. I needed to know. Was there someone else? Was he in trouble? Was he protecting me from something? Or protecting himself from me? The not knowing became its own kind of torture. And then I found the section he wrote the very last year of his life. The tone changed completely in those final pages. He sounded scared, urgent almost, like he was running out of time and he already knew it. He kept writing things like, "I almost told her today," and "I have to be careful, she's starting to ask questions." There were notes about cash pulled quietly from our savings account, amounts I'd never noticed back when he was alive to explain them. A name kept showing up, over and over. Just an initial, actually. D. Meeting D again Thursday. Meeting D near the old bookstore downtown. My mind went straight to the worst place it could possibly go. Oh no, was there another woman? Was D someone he loved behind my back? Someone he was paying off? Someone he'd almost confessed to instead of me? I sat there on that attic floor bracing myself for the one thing every wife fears most. Absolutely certain I was about to read about an affair I never saw coming. But D wasn't a woman. D was Desmond, my father. The same father who walked out when I was 4 years old. The man I had spent my entire life believing simply didn't care enough to stay. I had to read that page 3 times before the words actually landed. My father hadn't left because he didn't love us. He'd been erased, piece by piece, by someone we both trusted completely. I didn't know whether to scream or cry or call somebody right then and demand an explanation I wasn't sure I even wanted anymore. Ethan had found him, quietly, without telling me a single word. For almost 2 years, he had been meeting Desmond in coffee shops and parking lots around the city, trying to piece together the truth before he ever brought any of it near me. And what he found wasn't what either of them expected. My father hadn't abandoned us. My own Aunt Corinne, my mother's sister, had lied to both of them for over 20 years. She told my father that my mother wanted nothing to do with him. She told my mother that he'd remarried and moved on with a new family somewhere else. 2 lies, told to 2 different people just to keep them apart. She never liked him, even before any of it happened. I think, in her own way, she believed she was protecting my mother. She just never once thought about what it would cost me. Desmond had spent years trying to find me, letters that never reached me, phone numbers that no longer worked by the time he dialed them. And Ethan sat across from this stranger, this man I had quietly hated my whole life without ever once meeting him, and realized he was holding something big enough to either heal me completely or break the only version of my family story I had ever known. He didn't know which one it would be, so he waited. He kept meeting my father in secret, searching for the right moment, the right words, the right day to finally tell me. He never found them, because he died before he ever got the chance to say any of it out loud. The last page of that diary was dated 3 weeks before he passed. It wasn't written like the others. It was written straight to me. He said if I was ever reading these words, it meant fate had made the decision he never could bring himself to make. He was sorry for the secret, sorrier for the silence he wrapped around it for so long. He wrote that he didn't want me to remember him for what he'd hidden, but for how hard he loved me every single day he had left with me on this earth. I read that page 4 times before I could breathe normally again. I sat with that diary for 3 more days before I did anything. Then, one evening, I found an old number written in the back pages, half erased, like he'd almost crossed it out and changed his mind at the last second. My hands were shaking again when I dialed it. It rang twice. Then a man's voice, older, careful, said, "Hello? Is this Desmond?" I asked. There was a long pause on the other end. "Yes," he finally said. "Who's calling?" "My name is Mia," I said. I think you've been looking for me for a very long time." The silence that followed felt like it lasted an entire lifetime. Then I heard him exhale, slow and unsteady, and he said, "Mia? My Mia?" Like he still couldn't quite believe the word in his own mouth. We talked for almost 2 hours that night. He told me about the letters, the disconnected phone numbers, the years he spent wondering if I simply hated him, never knowing it was Corinne's voice in both our ears the entire time, not his own silence. He told me he'd kept an old photograph of me as a toddler folded in his wallet for over 20 years, just in case the day ever came when he got to hand it to me himself. I told him about Ethan, about the notebook, about how my husband spent the last 2 years of his life quietly trying to hand me back a father I never even knew I'd lost. We've met twice in person since then. It's slow, careful. We're basically strangers learning how to be family again. But it's something. It's more than I had a month ago, and a lot more than I ever expected to get back. I closed that notebook for the last time and just sat there, not crying, actually, just still. For the first time in 5 years, the grief felt different, lighter somehow. Not because I missed Ethan any less, but because I finally understood the man I married, all the way down to the parts he was too afraid to say out loud while he was alive. 5 years after losing my husband, I thought I'd found an old diary hidden in a dusty box. What I actually found was the last conversation we never got to have, and the beginning of one I never thought I'd get to start.
If there's one thing this taught me, it's that the people who love us carry weights we never see. Even the ones who love us the most carefully. right up until the very end. If this story moved you even a little, stay close, subscribe, and tell me below. Would you have wanted to know?